Welcome to The Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. We're more connected than ever before, right? We have Zoom, we have Slack, we have WhatsApp, we have Teams. Constant communication throughout. So why is it that everyone is feeling so disconnected? Now, Michelle thinks that she has the answer and has it all figured out. And it starts with you. Now, really interesting enough, Dr. Michelle Johnston has been on the show before, believe it or not. And I was just actually speaking to her offline. If you don't know who she is, make sure you go check her out. She's a best-selling author. She's a coach. She's a keynote speaker. And she's a professor of leadership at Loyola University in New Orleans. So she is extremely credited to talk about this particular topic. And it was almost 3 years ago when her previous book actually came out, which was all around the seismic shift. And you'll be able to see that depending on if you're watching this on video or you're listening to this on audio. But for those guys that can't see the video, Michelle's got this beautiful art called the seismic shift light up. And I just absolutely love it that she had specifically done. Anyway, without further ado, Michelle, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much for having me. I love being on your podcast, and I love the Business Strategist name. That's a great name for who you are and what you represent.
Oh, that's so kind. I'm really thankful. I really appreciate it. You know what's really interesting? So I think 3 years ago, so for you guys, it depends on when you were listening to this, we were called the Game Changers Experience before. Do you remember that? Yeah. And then we kind of went for a bit of a rebrand about 18 months ago, but I can't even remember. But anyway, people get it more, if that makes sense. Like people just get it more. And it's great that we reconnected and we've got some great connections. I just wanted to say thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Adam.
But anyway, let's jump in because I mean, there's been some more developments at your end. I mean, you've written a new book, which is kind of, it's an extension, I'm assuming.
It is.
It is. Okay, fine. So for you guys that haven't checked out Michelle's first book, which is all around the seismic shift of leadership, this is an extension to what she previously wrote in 2022. But the real big difference is that this time she's written it in co-author with the amazing Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who I constantly mention on here, by the way. He's not paying me a check or any commission for full disclosure. So I just wanted to tell you that. But let's get straight into today, Michelle, because I'm curious, right? So the paradox in the book, which was we're more connected than ever before, right? But I mean, disconnection is going through the roof. Doesn't matter how the size of business that's out there. Tell us a little bit more what you've discovered, what's happening. But to me, it makes no complete sense when we've got all of this, which we say tools in the arsenal. To me, it makes zero sense. Enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah. So what's happening is I believe that when I started seeing this seismic shift that we needed to lean in with connection back in 2018, it was as a result of technology. So I was seeing everybody, the phones, I was seeing as a professor that the campus wasn't buzzing as much, wasn't as lively. The kids come into the classroom, the students, their heads are in the phones. And I realized, okay. And then I was coaching leaders in the workforce. And the old command and control, authoritarian jerk boss was no longer working. And so I identified, as you said, my first book was diagnostic. I said, okay, y'all, there's a seismic shift happening and out with the jerk boss and authoritarian style. And we need to do a better job of connecting. And so I planted that seed. And then all of a sudden, the book was set to be published in March of 2020. And so now I'm about to publish a book about connection when the entire planet Earth is in lockdown mode. So I told my publishers, wait, let me hold on. Let me figure this out. And they gave me an extra 2 years. We thought it was going to be an extra 6 months to go back during lockdown and during the pandemic to interview all of the leaders and say, okay, now what? Now we're in a world of disconnection. How do we connect? And I believe, Adam, that the first book was a bestseller because of timing. So I held on to it until March of 2022, when we were all coming out of the pandemic saying, holy smokes, now we're hybrid or we're remote and we're relying on so much technology. And we all felt the loneliness epidemic during the pandemic of how much we missed being around humans. We needed humans, human interaction. So I believe that's why the first book was a bestseller. So the second book then goes on. Marshall and I, he wrote the foreword to the first book. He's my official mentor. So he and I in 2023 were at the Thinkers 50 Awards in London.
Yep.
And we're listening to the next Seismic Shift, which was all about AI. What are we going to do with AI? How are we going to show up as leaders? How are we going to utilize technology? And what is it going to do to our psyche and our teams? And I looked at Marshall. I said, this is the next Seismic Shift that we have to write about. So this next book is very micro, and it gives you 7 actionable steps that you as a leader need to do to create more connection. Because as you said, what in the world is happening, Adam? We are in an era of disconnection still, and it's getting worse as a result of technology. Yeah. So loneliness is 1 in 5 of people around the world. Dr.
Wow.
Vivek Murthy is continuing to study this. 1 in 5 are identifying as lonely, isolated, and depressed, which is having huge negative consequences on our physical health. So increased premature death up 60%, increased heart attacks 33%, increased strokes 32%. So it's physically causing us really bad ailments. So that's why I said we had to write a book about it. We can't keep doing what we've always been doing. I believe we're going down a very dark path.
I love those observations, by the way. And I guess just off of what you've talked about, which is kind of when you sat down with Marshall, when you saw this new shift, AI, for example, what is it that kind of is driving you? Is it kind of curiosity, or is it kind of looking at the bigger picture? Again, I'd love to know more around your psychological curiosity. I know that you're a professor on this particular subject, but what are you hoping that the work that you do and carries out for future generations, where's that going to lead to?
Adam, that is such a good question, because I am driven every single day. I'm on this mission to help leaders better connect to get better results. And what I love about all of the research is if you do, as a leader, lean in and help build more connection with your teams, and you show up as a human and you see your people as humans and not just the bottom line numbers and not just cogs in a wheel, you lead your meetings differently. You lead your conversations differently. You're more aware of your energy. If we as humans, we as leaders can lean in more with connection, then we will our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, everything improves, including the bottom line. So it drives financial performance, and it drives emotional well-being. It drives employee engagement. It drives retention. That's what this is surprising to me, is how many leaders maybe they don't know the research out there, but I'm surrounded by it. And I'm thinking, why in the world is anybody, knowing what they know now, leading the old way, where they just don't show up as human? They don't look as their people as human. They talk down to people to create a culture of fear. They lead meetings in the old way, where they just talk at people. They're agenda driven and not human driven. So I'm on a mission. And I believe that better connection equals better results.
I guess in the world of leadership, it's a belief system, isn't it? And I guess it depends on which generation you are. Like, you might have, the younger generation, which has they will have a completely different belief system from, say, your white collar worker that's been in business or in corporate America for like the best part of 25, 30 years. And I think, what we're seeing, and I don't know about you, but those shifting generations, is probably what's going to drive the trend to what you're talking about. And again, this is just my observations and my opinion, but are you seeing the same thing?
Oh, absolutely. I was just teaching my MBA class last night, and I asked them to raise their hands if any of them are Gen Zers. And I said, you all are getting a lot of pushback. Like, people are speaking negatively. I said, I'm out there supporting you all. I said, what I find so fascinating about Gen Zers is they were raised by Gen Xers, and they are saying, we don't want to be like you. And so Brene Brown said it beautifully to one of her audiences. She looked out and she said, stop dissing on Gen Zs. You raise them. And I talked to my daughter about this. She's 21. She's a Gen Zer. She's about to enter the workplace. And she said, yeah, Mom, all you do is work. All you do is work. I don't want to work like that hard. And that it's not that she doesn't want to work that hard. She wants to work differently. This generation, the thing that my daughter used, the lens in which she saw the world when she was choosing internships, was flexibility. She wanted flexibility. She didn't want to have to go into an office every single day. She wanted autonomy. She wanted growth. And yet she doesn't want to work entirely remote, because she's like, no, I want to be around people. I love being around people, and I love flexibility. So they want to be led differently. They want to be led by leaders who are saying, I care about you. I want to help you. I want to see you grow. I want to support you. I want you to celebrate your independence, your intelligence, your autonomy. I don't want to control you. They don't want to be controlled and micromanaged. And so when I work with my leaders as an executive coach, when I detect that they're really starting to control and micromanage, I try to stop them and say, look, you're going to get the opposite of what you want. If you want your employees to work hard and to be motivated and to reach their goals and their numbers, stop micromanaging and controlling the clock and checking when they got there and checking when they left. Trust that they're going to do their jobs when they can. That is one of the things, Adam, that is really disturbing to me, particularly when it comes to women, is during the pandemic, women are like, oh my gosh, I can now work and from my home and pick up my kids from school and then hop on after dinner and have their dad read them books or help them with homework. And I have more flexibility. And so I can show up as a leader, the type of leader I always wanted, versus women who in the past had to tell white lies like, oh, I'm going to the doctor, if they wanted to see their kids play, because that was not really supported. And so what's disturbing to me is that some companies are saying, no, they're clamping down on that control. We want you in the office at 8 and you can't leave until 5. And thousands, gosh, I just saw the stat. Thousands of women are leaving the workforce right now saying, I can't be the person I want to be if I'm a mom and a leader. People are not choosing to be in leadership as much as they were anymore. So yeah, the younger generations are saying, we want more flexibility, we want autonomy, and we want to grow, and we don't want you to try to micromanage and control us.
It's really interesting. We were having this conversation with a friend of mine, actually, and they were talking about the fact that, their business or their workplace, they demanded that they need to be in the office 3 times a week, right? And you're going to get a lot of pushback now. You're going to get a lot of resistance now, because the world changed since, like, from 5 years ago, and it's like people that are still in those leadership roles that are making constant decisions feel like, you know what, that's done, right? That area of life is now done. We need to go back to the old ways of working, right? And I think that there's internal resistance because it's a set belief system, and in a way it's not their fault, but in a way it is their fault because they're not seeing as what I call the bigger picture, right? The bigger picture, as you rightly pointed out. And I feel like, from my perspective, connection, from a perceptual perspective, connection is seen as a bit fluffy in the workplace. It doesn't matter if it's small or big or whatever it is. I don't think it's seen as seriousness. You're saying it is, and I absolutely agree with the impact it has on the younger generation. But I guess, how does one change a belief system when it's so ingrained into our subconscious? where we've been doing something for the best part of maybe 20, 30 years. How can you change that belief system? It's not going to be an overnight fix, is it?
Yeah,
What
you're
do you
right.
do?
I was thinking the same thing when I was working with a technology company a couple of weeks ago, and I was realizing that they saw connection. They moved so fast at such a rapid speed and all about AI, and they don't pause for very long to really connect with each other. And yet I'm their consultant and I talk so much about connection. And I thought maybe I need to reframe my message to them that it should be a culture of courage, because in order to be a connected culture, you have to show a lot of courage. What do I mean by that? In order to have connected conversations, you have to lean in and have those difficult conversations. In order to have connected meetings, you have to have the courage to show up differently and do things differently and start with a connection exercise. So I was thinking maybe if I framed it as, and to be a successful leader right now, you need to be a courageous leader. And to be courageous means you have to really be a great connector. Because I agree with you. I think that some people view connection as just fluff. And yet every single research is showing that if you do the 7 things that I'm advocating that you do, you will get higher financial performance.
I think tech in particular is kind of, there's one vertical like that. Tech is kind of somewhere over there, and then all the other businesses are kind of over here, if that makes sense. And I think you made a really valid point around, especially with fast growing companies that are going through rapid change, fast growth. I think kind of like when you're in that, should we say chaos, if you like, because it is chaos, it's very difficult to, I suppose, become self-aware, but also it's about priorities as well. Like, it does connect. Is connection really, really affecting the way that we are as a company? So I don't know, maybe that's kind of new research that needs to be carried out specifically for tech. I mean, you talked about AI at the very beginning, and we're seeing more and more AI companies obviously pop up left, right, and center, more SaaS companies and things like that. So I don't know. It's very thought provoking, but I think in answer to your question, from my opinion, is that if it's not that your lack of self awareness or you're uneducated, it's also about knowing, is it applicable to me and is it relevant?
Yes, and you had referenced earlier my title, The Seismic Shift in You. So we're saying that in order to get different results, because right now I alluded that we're going down a very dark path, Adam, as
Yeah.
far as the physical negative effects. And we think that by scrolling every night, it's going to make us feel connected. Well, it hits on the dopamine, but it doesn't hit on the oxytocin. Whereas if you have real face-to-face, genuine connection, it hits on the dopamine and it hits on oxytocin.
Mm.
And so in order to decrease this loneliness that so many people are feeling, this disconnection, this isolation that people are feeling because so much of their world is just digital and on screens, and people aren't even going to happy hour as much as that was just in the Wall Street Journal. Happy hours are down because there aren't as many people in the office and people aren't choosing face-to-face interaction. And yet the ramifications of that and the consequences are just horrible for our mental, emotional, and physical health. So we have to do things differently. And the seismic shift in you starts with you. So I'm saying you can't say, oh, my company doesn't do a very good job connecting. My community doesn't do a very good job connecting. The seismic shift has to start in you. We have to do things differently at an individual level. So the first big shift is shift in perspective. And Marshall and I believe that we need to shift from the what to the who. And that's going to change everything. Because in America in particular, we have defined success by achievement, more, faster, check. And Marshall would tell all of us in 100 coaches that he would be coaching the very top of the top leaders at the top of the top global corporations. And they would get on this achievement train, they would get to the top. to their destination, and they would look around and they say, why do I not feel so good? Why do I feel empty? And it's because they focused on what, and not the who, not the relationships. Even our U.S. Surgeon General under President Biden, Dr. Vivek Murthy, who he phrased that we're in a loneliness epidemic, and he's the one that continues to do the research. He said, I got to see him in a fireside chat last year, and he said, I'm here to tell you all, I fell victim to exactly what I'm talking about. I was on the achievement train. I wanted to be a U.S. Surgeon General. I got to the very top, and I thought, at what cost? Where are all of my friends? I haven't seen my friends in forever. I only focused on the what and not the who. So in his book, Together, and all of his papers and his lectures, he's saying we as a community have to do better. I'm saying it needs to be us as humans. The seismic shift is in you. You have to make a commitment to show up and switch from what to who do I get to interact with today? Who do I get to work with today? Who do I get to accomplish these goals with? How can I build them into my calendar? Who are the most important people in my life? Are they on my calendar? How can I see them in person? Because choosing to Zoom with every single person is going to make us a very empty culture.
I just had an epiphany. So I know that a lot of our listeners are small businesses. They're not the big corporations. But then it kind of got me thinking, actually, it makes no difference if you're a small business or a large corporation, right? And
no difference.
You made a really valid point, which is around, and I want to pick up something which is really interesting. You talk about the seismic shift in you, as in the individual. But my inclination would be, it's my team that's got the problem. It's other people that have the problem. That's my inclination, right? Obviously, you're saying that. But based on data, based on what you've discovered, and before we get into the kind of the 7 shifts, tell us a little bit more why it's not that, and it has to start with us.
It has to start with us, because who else is going to be managing your team? You're a participant in the team. Hopefully you're a leader. We're all leaders, no matter by title or not. Yeah. And so, if you're a part of a team where you're thinking it's not as collaborative or cohesive as you would like, and you're not getting the results, and there's not really a whole lot of trust, then do something about it and say, you know what? I want to get to know you all more. So rather than diving into the agenda, when we're on the Zoom call, why don't we go around and just do a check-in once a week and just say, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would love to know, how are you doing personally? How are you doing professionally? I had one of my MBA students last night. We did every Monday I meet with them, and I try to emulate and model the way. And we begin with a connection exercise. And so last week, the connection exercise was just what I shared with you. I had 19 students go around on a scale of 1 to 10. Tell me how you're doing personally, and tell me how you're doing professionally. And it just builds this trust and this camaraderie, and you've got this check-in, and it just creates a more cohesive culture, at least in my class. And one of the females in the class said her boyfriend has been struggling as a leader to get his team to be cohesive. And he used that exercise, and he said, what a difference that makes. If we just stop and pause and say, I care about you as a person. I want to know how you're doing. And then all of a sudden, then we can go faster. But what I have found is you've got to go slow in the beginning to build that trust and that safety and that connection with your team. And then you can be a high-speed train.
Well, I feel like if you go off too fast, I mean, the first thing that's going to happen is that people are going to be skeptical. They're going to be like, "What's going on here? Like, is this guy smoking something, or girl is smoking something?" Like, they're going to feel skeptical, and then they're going to feel uneasy, aren't they? One of the reasons why it doesn't happen is because there's this lack of ownership, right? And it's easy to blame someone. It's easy to blame your team or somebody else. But hey, I always say, whenever you're pointing one finger at someone, 5 fingers are pointing you back, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it is easy to say, oh, it's my team's fault. But the ownership, I believe that connection is accountability. That a lot of teams and a lot of leaders will say, well, I need more accountability on your team. Okay, then that means you need more connection, because connection is accountability, right? You can't hold your people accountable unless you have built that foundation of trust and safety and connection, and you treat them and you see them like humans and you show that you care about them. So the definition of connection is, are you doing a good job making sure that your people feel seen, heard, valued, respected, and appreciated? Those are 5 dimensions: seen, heard, valued, respected, and appreciated. You can make your team feel those things by saying, great job on the last project, by saying, on a scale of 1 to 10, I want to know how you're doing, by responding when they send you a text. There are so many simple ways that you as a leader can connect with your team so that they feel seen, heard, valued, respected, and appreciated. And then they will go fast. They will climb the mountain for you. They will run through fire for you if they feel connected and that you care about them.
First thing that springs to my mind is that what we're talking about sounds so simple.
Doesn't it? And yet it's so seldom done. That's what's crazy, Adam. Leaders
makes no sense.
do this. It makes no sense.
Most founders exit too late, not too early. They hit their number, then waste another 2 years second guessing it. Here's what keeps you stuck. You know what your business is worth, but you don't know what you're worth once you're out. Will the life you're picturing cost you 3, 5, or 8 million pounds? You probably have no idea. Now, our sponsors, Zentum, are financial planners who have built a tool for exactly this. It's called the Cash Out with Confidence Assessment Tool, and it shows you the real numbers, what your exit actually funds, and whether there's a gap to actually close. It takes less than 5 minutes, and you'll know if you can exit now or how much longer you need before you actually can. Go to cash-out-with-confidence.scoreup.com or check out the link in the show description notes below. Enjoy. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Talk to me a little bit about the 7 shifts.
Yeah. So that first big shift, Adam, is huge. That's what Marshall and I realized. We have to shift from the what to the who. And then the second shift is we have to shift our priorities. And the most important who is you. The most important who is you. And the quote that belongs in this chapter is, show me your calendar and I will show you your priorities. And it might make you really uncomfortable because we've been focusing on the what and not the who. We tend to only have tasks and outcomes on our calendar. We don't have people and we don't have ourselves. So I'm seeing more and more burnout with all of the leaders that I coach because they say they don't feel like they own their calendars own them. They don't have time to exercise. They don't have time for bio break, for lunch, and that they rarely get to see their family in the evenings. And this is very concerning to me, right? So show me your calendar and I'll show your priorities. We need to shift our priorities so that we embed time for exercise, for a lunch break, time to think, time to strategize. We need to take back our calendars because they're owning us and it's at a great detriment. We're not showing up at our own calendars. So what does that mean? If the most important who is you and you're not anywhere on your calendar, that means that you're not showing up as a great boss, as a great teammate, as a great father, as a great mother, as a great child, a daughter, a friend. And so this seismic shift is huge, Adam. It's a whole new way of reorienting yourself with the world and the workforce.
Have you ever thought about, or maybe you already have, is looking at how these seismic shifts and how they impact in different countries around the world? Like there's different cultures and the way that we value our time. I don't really believe in work-life balance, but that's just me. But, if we look at Western culture, for example, it's very different from, say, people that live in South Africa or people that live in Scandinavia. Have you found regular patterns and correlations to people's working practices? Or do you find that actually, their priorities are slightly different?
Yeah, for sure. And I've learned that just being involved with the 100 coaches, because twice a month we have calls with people around the world talking about these issues. And the American way seems to be work at all costs to a great cost to you. Yep. Work, 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 work.
Yep.
And some of my colleagues in France in particular, and some of the Nordic countries say that they actually do a much better job of disconnecting than Americans do. And
Yeah.
one of the things that the irony that I've learned about connection is in order for you to be a really good connector, you have to disconnect. You have to disconnect. You have to take vacations on the weekends. You have to disconnect. And Americans don't seem to be as good at that.
Well, guess what? We all can't be perfect, ladies and gents. Tell me a little bit about the cost to business that, you know, you've obviously gone into great depth and detail around the whole kind of seismic shifts and stuff like that. But tell us a little bit about the cost implementations on if we don't implement certain shifts. What does that look like to
Well,
us?
I'll give you a case study of one. So
Great.
I'm working with a leader who is an executive, and this is exactly he got to where he wanted, and yet the company might lose him. Why? Because he feels that, well, actually not feels, because he just recently went to a doctor and the doctor said, you are going to die young unless you do something differently. And your cholesterol is up, you've gained weight, your stress is up, all of the health indicators are negative. What are you doing? And so my client said, yeah. And I looked at my calendar and I realized I start working at 6 a.m. I end work like at 8 p.m. He said, I never get out of my chair. He said, so I've gained weight. I'm eating lousy. My nutrition's bad. My family doesn't see me and I'm burned out. So I think I'm going to quit. Well, that's the ramification, right? If you are in a company that doesn't say, we need to do a better job with balancing. I want you to make sure that you take care of yourself. Then they're going to lose their top leaders to burnout, and as a result of just the physical consequences of sitting is the new smoking. And so one of the things that I'm telling people to connect better is go on connection walks. So tell your team, rather than sitting in front of a Zoom on a Friday afternoon, put your earbuds in and we're all going to take a walk, either get on a treadmill or go around the neighborhood. We can still accomplish what we have to accomplish, and we need to move our bodies. We have got to prioritize ourselves, our physical health, our emotional health, and our mental health. And believe it or not, a lot of that has to do with connection. So if we can connect with ourselves better and connect with each other better, and the seismic shift and putting the most important who is you, then we're going to be better leaders. So the other shifts are, after you shift your priorities, the most important who is you, then you shift your calendar so that you prioritize the most important people in your life, both personally and professionally. Make sure they're on your calendar. Make sure that you have a ritual and a rhythm that reflects the most important people in your life. Then you need to shift the way you conduct meetings. Stop talking at people. Stop making it all agenda, all transaction. That does not work. There's no creativity in that. There's no connection. The output is not as good. And then you've got to shift your conversation so that they accelerate connection, so that they're not about shame and blame and eroding trust, right? That's a culture of fear. We want a culture of connection. And then shift your language so that you use words that are actually encouraging and not demoralizing. And then shift your energy, because Adam, I could feel your positive, enthusiastic energy as soon as you hopped on this call. Energy is palpable even thousands of miles away on a Zoom call. Energy is palpable, and we're not giving enough or importance, or saying we need to show up bringing our best selves. And if we're miserable, burned out, and physically exhausted and unwell, we're going to be bringing some negative energy, and that none of that works.
And ladies and gents, for full disclosure, there's enough negativity out there. Just watch the news, watch the media. That zaps your energy, right? Now, I know that we've only got a small amount of time before we wrap up today. But couple of things. First thing, tell us a little bit more about. Give us maybe a couple of practical exercises that we can use in our small businesses that will help to instill some of the shifts that you have rightly pointed out in your book.
Yeah, I want all of you all to create a connection cadence. So what does that mean? So I want you to write down the top 5, maybe 10 most important people in your life, both personally and professionally. Okay. Now, step number 2 is create rituals to make sure that you're going to connect with them. So, a ritual would be, how should you best connect with your direct reports? Should it be a face to face once a week meeting? Should it be a once a month Zoom call? Should you have quarterly offsites? What is the best ritual that can bring out the best in your people? Think about that ritual and be very intentional with that. Don't just go to the default and say, oh, we'll just hop on a Zoom and just go over the agenda every Friday afternoon. That does not work anymore. And step number 3 is think about the rhythm. How often do you need to connect with the most important people in your life? So, if you talk personally, there are a lot of leaders out there who are working all the time and their children are like, I never see you. And my daughter was one of those people. And so give your kids an option like, okay, each kid gets to choose how you want to spend one night a month with me. And you get to, is it ice cream? Is it shopping? Is it pizza? And show them and give them your time for that one night, or, do it every week, whatever you need to do. So it's figuring out the most important people in your life, figuring out the ritual that will best connect with these people. Is it a once a month or once a year family beach trip? Is it, rather than meeting on Friday afternoons in a windowless conference room, do you go on a connection walk? Right? So think about the rituals that are different that will allow you all to connect more, and then how often. So I had a client that told me this is a great idea. She said, we do weekly meetings, team meetings, and we do check-ins on a scale of 1 to 10. We always begin with check-ins. So we've realized we really only need one-on-one meetings once a month. And that allowed their calendars to free up so that they have a lot more time to actually do the work, and they're not just in back-to-back-to-back meetings. So they do weekly team meetings where they do check-ins, they support one another, and then once a month they do the one-on-ones. So it's really getting control of your most important relationships and making sure they're on your calendar in a way that will bring out the best of connection.
I always find also is to ask for feedback from others, like how is it best to ask, and I'm sure you've had those conversations. And I love the fact that you come up with these ideas around, taking a walk for a connection, whatever it is. It's like changing it up a little bit and just making it a little bit different rather than just having a meeting for the sake of having a meeting, which just drives me crazy, right?
I'm so glad you said that, Adam. One of my favorite clients last Christmas, she said, Michelle, she goes, we talk about connection all the time. And I was sending my direct reports emails telling them how I wanted to connect with them for all of 2026. And I realized that's not connection. Why don't I ask them how they prefer to connect? And out of her 8 direct reports, each one had a different preference. One said, I'm an extrovert and now I'm working remotely. Can we meet at a coffee shop every other week? Another one said, girl, I just need a telephone call with you once a month. I'm good. Each one had a different request. So it goes back. I love your advice. Like, just ask, have the conversation, and say, I want to do a better job in 2026. I'm calling 2026 the year of connection. I want to do a better job connecting with you. How do you want to connect with me? What works best for you? Just ask the question.
You mentioned around trust a lot there. That word came out of this conversation quite a lot. And I think probably from about 2020, cannot tell you how many times I harped on about the importance of the currency of trust. And it still is so important in the art of building relationships, in the art of growing a business or whatever it is. It's still up there, Michelle, even after 5 years. And normally there are trends that come and go, but I feel like, I don't know about you, but the word trust continues to still be in my top 3. What's your thoughts?
Absolutely. I believe that, and I've thought a lot about the chicken or the egg. Is it trust or connection? What comes first? I believe that you have to be very intentional and build connection and really show your people that you care, get to know them, ask them questions, go on a deeper level, show up as human. And once you build that foundation of connection, then you have trust.
Yep,
so I think connection comes before trust.
Very good. Now, I know that we're going to wrap up because we're both busy people, but listen, this has been a great catch up. First of all, just last final thoughts before we do wrap up. Now, for those that run teams remotely, that have different, employees, different team members, maybe in different different jurisdictions, different countries, or whatever it is. And they've bought into the idea of this connection that you're talking about, right? The seismic shifts and things like that. How can I, as a leader, gain a 4D perspective about how I can best use your framework to be able to improve my business?
How can I convince them to do what I'm asking them to do, you mean?
Well, not necessarily, but it's kind of more, how can I get more of a perspective, like from a top down perspective, like where are the gaps? Where are the opportunities? Is there any thoughts? Or maybe you have a thought with regards to going, when you go into a business and maybe it's dealing in a particular industry or a different vertical that's dealing with different, maybe even a large organization that is based in different countries. There's going to be cultural shifts. There's going to be different things going on.
And yet there's one thing we have in common, Adam, and if we're all working for nonprofit, profit, doesn't matter, organizations, we want to attract the top talent that will enable us to achieve our goals. And if you're trying to attract top talent, and then once you attract them and you get them in your organization, then you want them to be engaged, you want them to actually like each other and like work, you want to retain them, then you can't not shift to connection. You have to. You're not going to attract or retain or engage top talent unless you do things differently. And so I want you to begin your meetings with a connection exercise or a connection question. I want you to think about the language you use so that it's not creating a culture of fear. Instead, it's creating a culture of connection. I want you to think about your calendar and are the most important people on it. I want you to think about your perspective. Are you only focused on achievement and tasks? Or are you really focused on relationships and bringing out the best in your people and helping them grow? This is a seismic shift, and it starts with you.
So for you guys that are listening in, hope you've enjoyed mine and Michelle's conversation. First and foremost, make sure that you go over to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Make sure you go check out Marshall's and Michelle's latest book. There it is, Seismic Shift in You. Make sure you go check that out. And this was like kind of the continuation from Michelle's first book. So if you haven't read the first one, make sure you buy both of them at the same time, as you may as well, right? Michelle, I just want to say thank you so much for being on today. It's been a great catch up, right?
Loved it. Adam, you're such a delightful host. Thank you so much. Great questions, great energy. I really appreciate you.
Very good. And for you guys that are listening in, by the way, if you've enjoyed today's conversation, please do me a favor. If this is the first time, or if you're back and you're regular and you haven't yet to do so, please go over to Apple or Spotify, leave a review, 1 or a 5-star review, whichever. We'd love to hear from our fans and our followers and people from around the world. So from me and Michelle, thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.